Hey everyone, welcome to Basic Binges. I'm Sabina Graves, your host of the Moon Knight after show here on our network, where we talk about nerdy things and we also talk about food. And I am so happy that this show has been referencing food pretty much every episode, and not just having Oscar Isaac be the main course of it. I mean, well, no, he is the main course of it. Who am I kidding? Anyways, I am so happy to welcome our guests here. We will start with, I still don't know how to like tap other people in, but let me just I'm gonna point to a square that I hope is the right person. Whitney, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Tell the people what you do.
I'm a themed culinarian. I'm also an artist and a singer. So I basically, I do love to create like themed snacks and all kinds of goodies. So I actually today I'm having a Moon Knight themed cupcake. I don't know if you could really see.
Yes, I love it.
Nice.
Who cameoed in the background? Some feline.
My kitty. Yeah, she's napping.
Oh, so cute. And we have another special guest down over here in my area of things. You know, just one of these. We have Mr. Knight.
What's up, guys? What's up? Huh? What's up? Oh,
Negotiator.
Yeah.
Oh,
How's everyone doing? I'm going to take this off because it's 70 degrees in LA right now. It's hot as hell. So
hot.
Let's not repeat what happened last week. How's everyone doing?
Mike, introduce yourself.
Of course. I'm Mike Manalo, aka, as I'm gonna own the title that you guys gave me last week, Moon Knight Mike. I love that. I love that so much. I'm gonna own it. I'm Mike Manalo from the Nerds of Color, also from What to Watch, and yeah, that's at LA. So glad to be back. Glad to be talking Marvel again. Glad to be talking Moon Knight again. Hoping to keep this going for the entirety of the show. But thank you guys for having me.
Of course. And real quick, tell us about WonderCon. Did you cosplay as Moon Knight for WonderCon?
I did cosplay as Moon Knight for WonderCon. Yeah, no, it was hot as hell. Man, I gotta say, I loved it. I'm very proud of this costume. I will say that. I wouldn't consider myself the world's greatest cosplayer, but there are moments where I actually am very proud of the things that I make. And even though this it might not be like 1,000% screen accurate, it's mine, and I love it. And I just gotta tell you, it was disgusting taking everything off. Like I took the mask off, and like steam just came out, and my white outfit was like, sweaty and gross and yellow by the end of the night. So it's really nasty. So just for everyone,
non-glamorous side of cosplay.
Yeah. It's and you gotta feel sorry for Oscar Isaac if he has to do this every day on set. So but that being said, I loved it. I don't care. I'm gonna sacrifice 1,000 days of sweat just so I can look badass like that. So yeah, it was fun.
That's so cool. I actually met a Moon Knight cosplayer right before the convention. I ended up at Trader Sam's one evening, and they were overhearing my talking about our like reviews and stuff like that, and kind of were like, "Oh my god, I love Moon Knight," and told us about his like cosplay and how there was like a whole meetup right for Moon Knight characters.
There was, yeah. I think Saturday there was a cosplay event. I unfortunately could not make that one because I couldn't make it down to the convention that day. But I was invited to join with them, the day before. Unfortunately, I had to pass. But from what I saw, it was just a large collection of these really amazing cosplayers, people that were able to put like LED lights and everything in the eyes. And, I saw some of the photos that came out, and it was amazing. I had a friend there that cosplayed as Layla, who we'll be talking about today.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome because you don't see a whole lot of people. Not a lot of people know Layla, of course. She's not in the comics. She's been introduced in this show, in this specific episode. I think she's going to be one of the first in a long line of cosplayers to come. But the photo shoot looked amazing. I've never seen so many Moon Knights ever in the history of conventions that I've gone to. So it was badass. I'm loving how popular the character's getting.
Yes, and he's also even being incorporated into the parks over at California Adventure. For episode 1, they had Moon Knight in his Mark sort of like, just like tactical gear, I would say, like the whole with the cape and everything. And this week they introduced the Mr. Knight variation of Steven's like sort of undertaking of that persona, which we're going to get into in this episode, of course, because it's called Summon the Suit.
I'm in the suit.
We saw like the last shot of the last episode where we saw one suit, and in this one we kind of are still following Steven along as he is bumbling through the events of last week's episode. He wakes up, he's tied up in his usual way. He tries to go to work and like runs into the security guard who still doesn't know his name correctly and is like, you got to roll the tapes. You got to roll the tapes and see what happened to me last night. And in a very Fight Club way, you kind of just see him running around by himself, and he very quickly gets fired from his job at the museum and is, recommended to go seek some medical help. And, it's definitely like a weird vibe for Steven because he's kind of being gaslit by Mark and Khonshu, but you kind of get a sense that Mark's starting to realize, that Steven might come in handy in some way with just his knowledge and the stuff that he's already like been studying and has all over his apartment. How did you guys feel like that opening and sort of like them trying to get rid of Steven, but it actually backfiring on them?
Whitney, would you like to go first?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just like the symbolism, like this whole show, there's so much to see. You can't like look away or you'll miss the slightest either Easter egg or symbolism. Like even something as slight as him like putting down his name tag, Steven, is basically him kind of being like, okay, time to put Steven away. You know what I mean? But that whole opening scene with him running around, I was like, there's no way that's not going to be caught on camera. Like Mark definitely took care of that, And so just seeing that, and even when he looks up at the security footage and Steven's like, that's not me. Like he's like, that was not me. But yeah, that whole opening was just great. And you feel for Steven because it's relatable because, you'd be like, what is going on? So I thought it was a really cool opening.
Yeah. It's definitely the old horror movie trope, right? Where you tell everyone there's a monster, and then they look and there's nothing there. And naturally, as we come to see in these episodes, the jackals are invisible. I mean, like they're there, but you can't see them. Much like a meal in
They're very, very careful jackals because they were like, oh, I know who this base belonged to back in the day. I can't break that.
But I will admit, I thought it was kind of funny just watching Steven scrambling around and nothing's like chasing him on the footage. So everybody just thinks he's just like, what the hell? I will say this as well. One of the more annoying aspects of the show, and I'm really glad that they dispatched of it quickly. I don't think I would have been able to stand his boss or everyone kind of treating him like garbage in the museum for, an entire series. They're really just horrible people. The boss, the security guard, and I'm glad that the show, pretty much immediately is like, we're gonna get rid of this, these mean people, these toxic people, this everyone hates Steven kind of vibe. Because the goal really of the show is to end up loving Steven and to end up loving Mark. So by taking this away, this hindrance away, I think they did a smart thing. So I'm very glad that came and went very quickly, because it would have gotten on my nerves for long periods of time. But yeah, what a way to kick off the show. I mean, just in general, I think the directors of this one are, and I forgot their names, but they did VHS, right? So they're no strangers to horror. So I love the tone already kind of kicks off with one of those bait and switch horror moments in horror cinema where everyone's, thinks somebody's crazy because something scary happened to them when they're really not. Really well done.
Totally. And you're bringing up the whole horror aspect of it. I think it's funny that, Khonshu's just out to like squash Steven at any like turn. And like I said, the whole thing, like him getting fired, kind of backfires on Khonshu because it gives Steven time to uncover the locker filled with like treasures and secrets that that they didn't want Steven to get in on. I really like that whole sequence where Mark's like, stop touching my things, and Khonshu is just treating Steven like an idiot the whole time and is trying to legitimately scare him, to the point where we have that sequence in the hallway again, utilizing like the light flickery, like scary moments that, the directors, obviously who have done a lot of horror kind of do effectively. I think it was a little restrained though, because we kind of saw that in the first episode that Mohammed Diab directed, and I thought that one was more chilling than this one, but I think it was still pretty fun because then it kind of, the tension of that gets released with him running into Layla literally outside the storage room.
You really had a Conjuring sort of vibe with this scene, which I loved. Like the lockers are shaking and the locks themselves are like clanging, and it's almost like something's trying to get out, like a poltergeist or something. And I love the lighting cues in this one. I think you're right. It was scarier the first time we see it when Mohammed Diab directed that first episode, because we had never seen anything like that in the MCU. And coming off of that to do another horror tinged scene, it does, you are a little bit more prepared for it. But I actually thought it was really brilliantly executed. Pretty scary. They even do like a little freeze frame of Steven like freaking out.
That was quite the
Funny
choice.
as hell. Side note, when Steven goes to his locker in that scene, you guys saw the little QR code, right? And you guys hearing about the QR codes.
Yeah.
This time, did you guys scan it?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe it led. Where did it lead you, Whitney?
Yeah, it was for another comic. So it was like another Moon Knight, like werewolf comic. Because for the first one, we got the Werewolf by Night one.
That's right.
Yeah. And then so it's going to be kind of cool looking out for that now, kind of keeping your eyes peeled for like new comics or different cool little Easter eggs like that.
It's the issue that you just held up, the facsimile version of, I think, 32, Werewolf by Midnight 32. This is 33.
Yes.
So the issue that Marvel's enabling people to read is a continuation, because this one ends on a cliffhanger. It's a continuation of that one, and it's technically the second appearance of Moon Knight. So quite a valuable comic in general, but it's clever that Marvel knows that not a lot of people are well versed in Moon Knight. This is kind of their first toe dip into who this character is. So really kind of getting people to read his origins cleverly through these hidden QR codes, and it's free, I love that. I think that that's amazing.
It's like interactive, and it's, it's just a fun way to get that knowledge and make you feel included if you weren't really familiar with the character, like you said.
During Multiverse of Madness, we're all going to be like this at like the screen.
For sure.
It's going to be terrible. But yeah. Sorry, Sabina, what were you going to say?
No, I totally agree. I definitely am coming at this from like, as a person who wasn't entirely familiar with the character Moon Knight in the comics. I am all about brown people in capes. So, when they cast Oscar Isaac, I immediately was like, I don't know much about who Moon Knight is. I'm going to like get into it as I'm watching the show. Mike, thank you for helping me get access to some of the comics that I couldn't find in person. Like I think I messaged you right before the show premiered and was like, where can I get the Ellis run? Because one of my other friends, Sean Gerber, he recommended I read the Ellis run. And like, I went to a bunch of comic book stores and they were like, that's not being like, it's like kind of out of print right now. And they were looking up like where I could find it. And they're like, it's going to be reprinted by June. And I was like, that doesn't help me right now.
I'm your QR code, Sabina. I will be your QR code
You are
anytime.
my QR code.
Yes.
For sure. Moon Knight Mike. Yes.
Moon Knight Mike. I'm just gonna stand here. You can scan my face and
Amazing. Yeah, no, and it's been really awesome to see Oscar Isaac really get into this role and kind of like, as someone who was really disappointed at where they took Poe Dameron. I think you can kind of see him right here. He's my small Poe Dameron as one of the identities over there.
it's okay. It's about as big a role as he had in the series, so it makes sense.
Oh,
kind of, yeah.
Ooh, oh, my heart.
Sorry.
But it's great to see him really get to just flex all of his different muscles and really take on this very unique role that we're getting just weekly. We're getting weekly Oscar Isaac. Before it was waiting in between Star Wars movies, like more Oscar Isaac, and now it's like he's on our TV screen
constantly, and I'm very happy too.
Yeah. Yes, Whitney.
I am too.
Which I'm gonna lead into this next part of the episode where he basically becomes Mr. Steal Your Girl because he immediately becomes smitten with Layla, who identifies him as Mark and is like, you can cut this alias act, and he's like, no, I'm actually Steven. And he's all bumbly and adorably just puppy dog crushing on her. Meanwhile, she's like, here are the divorce papers, and he's like, but why would I divorce you?
It's so sweet. He's like perfect, he's an Egyptologist and he finds his match. So it's just it was really sweet to see that moment where he's like, hey, someone I can relate to who also loves this stuff. So it was very sweet. It was endearing, and their favorite poem being the same French author. So that whole poem and everything was just
they got chemistry, those two. Just watching them quietly recite French poetry to one another.
Yes.
Best thing in the world. I got more out of that than I did Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez in that movie that came out this year. I could watch May Calamawy. I think that's how you pronounce her last name, May Calamawy, and Oscar Isaac bounce off each other all day. Very sweet, very, very sweet.
And she is so incredible. I love, that she is a Egyptian actress as well, who is a relative newcomer. And obviously she is her in this incredible performance, but she also kind of gave me early Gina Davis and Rachel Weisz vibes.
Yes. Yes.
Not that I want to compare her to anyone, but that sort of archetype that we loved these iconic characters before that we just as women don't get enough of still to this day. So to have a new character who is an archaeologist and she's roguish and about her heists and missions and being I'm stealing stuff back for the people it belongs to. I am also in love with her.
Yeah.
Same here. No, just being able to see more of that type of character, the one that who can hold her own in a fight. But the biggest and most wonderful redeeming thing about her is her mind, and her wits, and how prepared she is and how knowledgeable she is about her craft and her professionalism, her profession. I love that. I love seeing that. I think May was a phenomenal actress. I think Layla's going to be a phenomenal character, especially we're getting that vibe already early on here. It's great to see more. Again, not to compare, but it's great to see more Evies in the world,
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, and then this time with no brown face.
Yes, exactly.
The sake of the mummy too. I love you, but no. We didn't. Yeah. We knew we should have known better. I think that May does such an incredible job at being this character that she can really stand on her own with Oscar Isaac, and this is the first time I've seen her in anything, and that is so cool. And you kind of get the sense that her past is obviously something that is going to come to light in connection to the MacGuffin, the scarab, which she is also after. That Mark, is yelling at Steven in this entire scene, like, keep her away from it, keep her out of danger, like, don't get her involved. And, as Layla realizes that Steven is, like, not Mark pretending to be an alias, they get, accosted by agents at the door who, want to interrogate Steven, and Steven immediately thinks it's because he broke toilets.
Bless his heart. That's how, like, sweet and innocent this person is,
It's very sweet and innocent. I also think it's kind of dumb. I mean, Steven,
Yeah.
stop being so, like, maybe it's not because I'm not familiar with how the officers, the Lowry, is it Bobbies in England? Bobbies, right? That's policemen. I'm not sure how Bobbies operates or anything like that, but the sheer fact that nobody presented a warrant before breaking into his place, and breaking in by force, no less,
right.
without being provoked. Put 2 and 2 together, Steven. Come on.
You gotta know better.
Yeah,
At that point, yeah.
I mean, you're and it's intentional. We know that because Steven's never encountered anything like this in his life, right? As far as he knows, anyway. But dude, come on. I mean, something's fishy about that, and it's not just.
We agree with Khonshu in those moments. We're just like, this idiot. Just like follows these authority figures into their car and everything, and gets arrested, and he's just like driven into some random alley and sits there.
Yeah, I'm like, that's definitely a red flag, not the handcuffs in the bed, but being driven into an alley.
You're so sweet, but you're so dumb. I mean,
and we end up finding out that it is actually Arthur who has set up this whole, like, charade, and who he like realizes basically, like, by leaving a walkie-talkie in the car, that he's like basically listening in on Steven arguing with Mark and with Khonshu, and realizes that the 3 identities inside the body are not in harmony. So that's when he decides a new approach with Steven, and decides to kind of like extend an olive branch, as you would say, and invites him into his cultish compound of a gentrified building with like sustainable living, and offers him lentil soup, which is my favorite. I love lentil soup, so I was like, oh my god, I would not be able to say no either.
Yeah, what's not to like about all the free lentil soup you can have? Yeah, I want to also call something out. The cinematography, as it was in the last episode, in this episode is effing gorgeous. Like, honestly, when he's leading Steven away from the car to, the commune, there's this gorgeous shot of Khonshu against the sky, and I just thought to myself, that's a splash page right there. There's so many moments like that, and that, we'll get to in this. But I was just thinking to myself, this is literally like reading a Moon Knight comic, and I loved it so much. But it's also really alarming how, menacing Ethan Hawke can be one moment, and yet also how charming and nice he is the next. Like when he's walking through saying hi to, all these different people about the tomatoes that they're growing and kicking around his soccer
and yet
ball.
you hear the glass in his shoes.
In his shoes. Yeah, you can hear it. Oh,
every time.
It's so weird. I don't know. But it's kind of a good actor, right? Like, but yeah. Sorry, I cut everyone off. What was Whitney? What were you going to say?
Oh, no. Yeah, I was 100% agreeing with everything, with that whole scene, with that cult community, and just walking through it. It, looks peaceful, and, they're growing plants and having, family recipes of lentil soup and this and that. But then just seeing, like the darkness underneath the reality, it was just a very interesting juxtaposition.
Oh, totally. It gave me, like, I don't know if y'all have ever followed a friend along on a pyramid scheme lunch where they're like, I'm gonna take you out to lunch. Here's a really good meal. I'm gonna talk to you about this awesome community that I'm a part of. And that thing you're listening to right now, you shouldn't trust it, but you should trust me and the I follow, because Amit, she just wants to get to the problem before it becomes a problem. Like that whole exchange.
That is so problematic. Like, it's so toxic.
Not learn anything from Project Insight MCU. I mean, like, it's not good. Cap stopped something like this. Tom Cruise stopped this in Minority Report. This is not premeditated, justice is not real justice. Come on, But yeah, it's creepy. You're right, Whitney. Like the whole commune seems so innocent, so nice, on the surface level. But then when you start to see everyone at once kind of get up and start surrounding Steven, it stops being cute and it starts being really creepy,
unsettling. And
like a Manson vibe kind of thing
like
going on.
Somar meets Waco.
And,
they all have the tattoos, so I wonder if that's something to do with it, because they all seem to have like the same tattoos as Arthur. And that creates like some sort of like hive connection, that they're on like the same wavelength.
That's a good theory. Yeah. It's creepy to think about, though. Oof,
I know.
Yeah, and you also kind of, I like how Steven describes Amit as like the crocodile head lady.
Yeah.
Why are we listening to a crocodile head lady about maybe killing some babies?
And he's like, maybe this isn't okay. He's like, that's where I draw the line, like.
I do want to try that lentil soup, though. I feel like, is that worth it to sit through the sales pitch if the soup is really good? Maybe not, but still, it looks kind of good. If there was actually anything in there, I don't know.
I know.
That sounds delicious.
Oh my gosh, it did. It was probably like just stewed for so long. I love good lentil soup. And he's vegan. He was so thoughtful. He was like, I'm also a vegan. And like Steven was probably still processing that steak from the last episode.
He's like, I eat one steak and I'm already like going crazy.
And I mean, it's devious of Arthur to come across as a friend with, who's somewhat like-minded in some ways, because Steven, we know, is something of a pacifist. He's not the type of person to get into a fight. For some guy to come along and say, I'm a vegan too, and I'm nice, and all that stuff. Right now, Arthur actually looks better to him than Mark does, because he's hearing all these things on the radio in the car about what Mark has done as a mercenary, and it's coming across pretty badly. It's really not looking good. And Khonshu's the one supporting this and frightening him and everything like that. So if you're Steven, it's a welcome change of pace to, despite being, handcuffed in the back of a car and then, chased through a museum by a jackal, this guy coming across as a nicer guy and giving you free soup and stuff. It's very tempting as a prospect to technically follow this guy. And then you start hearing about child murder and you're like, and there's the rub,
Like, that's when I take my exit. It's wild, because like, can you see Ethan Hawke just flip, because he, like you said, he's very like charismatic and very just like endearing, and you're just like, wow, like this guy seems like he's not that bad. And then he starts saying all the weird stuff and you're like, oh, I gotta get out of here. Like, it's the get out moment of the show. And it kind of makes you wonder, especially in the parts of the conversation where you start to see that darkness creep in with Arthur, when he's like just very bitterly, like he's trying not to sound bitter, but it is kind of bitter when he describes like, oh, I bet you Khonshu is saying this. Oh, is he saying this now? Like, oh, of course he's telling you it's just one more job, but with him it's never just one more job. So there's just like that struggle there where you kind of find out Arthur was an avatar for Khonshu, and now he's serving somebody else, and you kind of like start to wonder like what really made him lose faith in Khonshu. Like, is it justified or is it not justified?
Yeah. I mean, just the idea, I think, I think it kind of, you start to see why Khonshu rejects Arthur, the more that Arthur tries to explain himself, right? And it's just this idea that he's willing to go through to these extremities for what he considers to be justice. As dark and as horrible as Khonshu can be, he could be a real jerk, and you hear that, just in things that he says. But ultimately, it you start to see the difference between the extremities of justice that Arthur's willing to go through versus where Khonshu's able to draw the line. So yeah, it's I mean, I really do want to know the history between Khonshu and Arthur, because that sounds like a compelling story in and of itself. But maybe we'll get that later. I don't know. Like, Whitney, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because I feel like maybe like Arthur started going rogue. Well, obviously, but he started kind of throwing around some kind of crazy theories where Khonshu's like, whoa, no, I want, someone to defend the defenseless and be more about that, as opposed to justice before anything even occurs. That's murder. That's not good, And so Arthur genuinely seems to believe that he's doing the right thing. Like, him and his followers genuinely believe this, that they're doing the right thing. And that's the scary part. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of this. And I do also want to see like what occurred in the past as well with him and Khonshu. So hopefully there's some light shed on that.
Yeah. He is super bitter though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Khonshu definitely gives the vibe of like, I've been doing this for too long and I do things in my way and I don't give a fuck, but as long as someone is messed up, I'll show up and I will kill them.
Yes.
Like, that's just the job. One of the interesting things to note is F. Murray Abraham does such an incredible job at the voice. Like, I know that there's been a lot of like comparisons to Venom, but Venom is legitimately a loser from a different like planet. Like, I think that F. Murray Abraham brings a like a seasoned vet who's just been like doing this mercenary work for like a god who does that, and he definitely brings like just like very acerbic wit to it, and he's such a great actor to have in this role, because sure, he has like some of this like contentious vibe with like Steven and like being like, Mark, let's get rid of this guy or whatever, even though he's in your head. But you know that because they brought in such an amazing actor, that it's gonna lead to like more things in with this character later on. And like Mike said, like, we're probably gonna get some sort of backstory with him and Arthur. Just like a funny like side note that there's a weird fun MCU connection here with F. Murray Abraham, that like he played Salieri in Amadeus.
Yeah.
And in Iron Man, when Obadiah Stane brings pizza to Tony Stark, he is playing a piece by Salieri. And Salieri is known as Mozart's biggest bitter rival.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in the movie is alleged to have like killed him. But it's so crazy that that's like a really big, like sort of like Easter egg in Iron Man that like, kind of paid off this like far down the line by having the person who played that character. Like it's I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but just really cool that kind of like gets brought in full circle. Like I'm not entirely sure if it really has any weight with the plot of the show, like unless Khonshu ends up being evil. But I just thought that was really cool to kind of like just notice and see.
Yeah.
I love that you made that connection. It's almost like a triple entendre if you think about it, because you have Obadiah Stane playing that piano in that scene just for the sake of Obadiah Stane playing it. But then the hidden meaning behind that for Favreau is, of course, because Salieri was always second to Mozart, and Mozart was a clown, in that movie. You have Tony Stark, kind of the clown, but the prodigy
Exactly,
who sells
yeah.
better than Obadiah Stane. So that piece actually means something in the context of those characters. And then you take that, idea of that Salieri piece and you cast Salieri later on in the MCU. I love that, Sabina. I didn't even pick up on that. That is brilliant. I was just like, oh,
I'll bring in the comic book Easter eggs. I'll bring in like the weird movie nerd like callbacks there.
Just I figured that they hired him because the gravitas and the theatricality in his voice, is just amazing, which it really is. He's so good at Khonshu, and he brings this booming power to every every line that he says. But then to think about the Salieri thing, tying that back to Iron Man, it's so clever. That makes me love it so much more. So cool.
I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but I'm like, this is a really cool thing that happened, y'all. Like alignment, universal alignment there.
It's so awesome.
The genius that is Seraphin, But yeah, love it.
And oh my gosh. So, I mean, to tie back to like what's going on here. So we have Khonshu, who is this, deity, and we get more information about Ammit, who is also like, a deity in this realm of the Aenad. I can pronounce these words. You kind of like begin to wonder, like, specifically with the staff, for example, it's an artifact that somehow houses some of Ammit's powers, and Arthur describes it as the first gift that Ammit gave her first avatar who betrayed her, which I'm like, do we believe him? Do we believe this backstory for this artifact? And like, especially considering what happens later on, I kind of start to wonder if this phase of the MCU is very much about these ancient artifacts and these ancient powers. And from what we know about the Darkhold and the Ten Rings, they are some masquerading lying gods or deities that are like misleading people. Like, do we think Arthur is being misled? Like, how do we feel about like what kind of goes down from that moment forward, where he sees Stephen as a threat? Layla comes in and is like, I got the scarab, which I'm kind of a little confused about. And then like he taps into like this force, like, and like hits that staff on the ground and like opens up that realm that is very reminiscent to the tears in the sky from No Way Home. Like
that purple magic.
Yeah.
Purple magic.
The Power Stone and Agatha, and we're seeing it again,
Did we lose you, Sabina? Audio cut out.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Yay! I got excited. I have airplanes flying ahead, so like I'm always just like I need to like mute myself so you won't hear the airplanes. Yeah, no, exactly. Like we've seen Agatha steal like life and power force from like witches, and we're seeing Arthur steal life and energy force from people. And we saw that when Wu freed the Dweller and its demons, they were feeding off people's like souls. Like,
yeah,
hold on.
Even in What If, when you think about like Strange Supreme and how he was feeding off of people, I mean, there's definitely like a lot of purpleness in the MCU going on right now. Not just Thanos, either, but like, that energy that we're seeing. It seems to be very much tied very heavily, as you were saying, Whitney, into the idea of the multiverse, or sorry, Sabina, into the idea of the multiverse, with the Doctor Strange rifts opening up and also being purple. With every, maybe that's how Moon Knight's going to get into the fold. If this entire saga, I guess the second saga that they're building, if the first one was the Infinity Saga, this is the multiverse saga. If they build this out, maybe that's how Moon Knight gets into the fold. Maybe maybe the gods of Egypt exist in a different dimension in the multiverse. And this is a key to summon jackals from that same dimension, or the dimension that Amit is from, you know? I love this, guys. We're putting on our tinfoil hats because, you know, this is this is how they're going to summon Mephisto, by the way. So
yes,
yeah.
it is.
I'm a nerd of like Egypt history.
Yes.
I was kind of almost thinking, what if it's not Amit that is being brought back? Like, what if it's like a different god, like Set, who is like the embodiment of evil, like king of the underworld, aka Mephisto? Like, no, I mean,
Yeah.
like, maybe, but nah. Like, you know, I honestly think we can't have Mephisto in this, just because we can't really do double things and the creative team, but we can like tiptoe around evil like entities, as they would be, you know, referred to. But you know, taking it back to like Wenwu, kind of like thinking that he's hearing his like wife calling for him. Like, do we think Arthur is in on it, or do we think that he legitimately
Being
thinks
played? Yeah, you never know.
you don't know.
I love that you brought up Set, because in the comics, Set is the big rival to Khonshu. So for them, if they ever do pull a bait and switch, and Amit is not Amit but actually Set, there is huge comic book ties to that, and that's kind of a big revelation that, you know, this is exactly who you think it is, based on the comics, but you wouldn't know that because Harrow is being lied to, you know, or we're being lied to as the audience. So that would be very cool if they did that.
For sure. But jumping back into what ends up happening here. So Steven's trying to like get out of there, get Layla out of there. He is fumbling around. Mark's like, you gotta like let me in, bro. You gotta like tap me in. And you know, Layla's like, oh, it's fine. Just summon the suit to Steven.
He's like, suit.
Like, what are you talking about? What?
No.
Whitney, were you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, no, it was just hilarious, that whole scene, because it's like he's like, how, you know? It's like he's like in midair and he's like, summon suit, like.
It's a very cool transition shot, though, to see him just flying and flailing and falling down, and then just superhero landing, and he's in the Mr. Knight
Mr. Knight.
You know?
Mr. Knight.
And then he promptly falls over.
Love it. I love that it's very Daft Punk. At least to me, it was Daft Punk. But obviously, he Mark's like demented Colonel Sanders.
I love that. Yeah, it's very different, and I know that online there was a lot of talk. People were kind of like, you know, there are a lot of people that loved it, and then there are a lot of people that are like, why is it like the comics, you know, which always happens with these projects, right? And I can understand for hardcores why, you know, they'd be like, oh, you know, Mr. Knight, the purpose of that was supposed to be the negotiator with the police and the detective and everything like that, and he's not here. You know, for all of those folks, totally hear your complaints, totally valid complaints. But remember, this is only the second episode in a 6-episode run that's going to lead into more Moon Knight later on, hopefully. And I would definitely think so, because of how much popularity this character is getting. And just be patient, because they're going to get there. How long? It took them 3 movies and several years to get to Spider-Man in a hand-sewn outfit, without, you know, gadgets or anything. Back to basics, back to core. Marvel knows what it's doing. Trust them, because even if they don't get there at the speed that you want them to get there, they usually get there. And I personally loved it, though, because to me, what Mr. Knight represents is that dichotomy between Steven and Mark. These are very, very different characters. It's not the same character who's talking to himself in 2 different bodies. This is 2 different characters with 2 different perspectives that we are following, and how they interpret and go about their methods of justice and their methods of doing the right thing. That's very important. And that's the appeal and the heart of this show. So to see Steven summon Mr. Knight and the approach that Mr. Knight takes to fighting, which is very green and very new, I think that only serves to amplify and, tie in more heavily to this character study of two different characters and their different philosophies and their different views. So I loved it, for what it's worth. Clearly,
Whitney?
I mean,
Yeah. Amazing.
So, yeah.
Whitney?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, it's the second episode, y'all, and it will get there. Like, Marvel knows what they're doing. Basically, I am mirroring Mike's sentiments in this, where I'm excited. I'm excited because it's always fun to see something, a fresh take. And like was said, it's only the second episode, so we don't know where it's going, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And, to kind of like echo what you're saying about like people who are complaining and stuff, one of the things that intrigues me about the show, and I brought it up early on, was, having Oscar Isaac be in this, having directors like Mohamed Diab, create an interpretation of this character and how important it is to him, and Oscar, in like creating a character whose different identities are aiming to better represent, people with DID, and kind of like, in the comics, just by fault of like unconscious sort of biases and misunderstandings about conditions that, as time goes on, we learn more about and like treat with more nuance. I think they're definitely doing that and kind of like showing how, he is finding and reclaiming some sort of power with, like accepting the way that he is. And in the regard of a lot of like, why aren't things just like in the comics, Mohamed Diab talked about how in media, not just like films and stuff, but in like in books and comics, Egyptian culture has always kind of been kind of stereotyped in ways that, need to be changed. And it's something that we have seen, not just with Moon Knight, but also with Shang-Chi, and how in Shang-Chi we got, that sort of be unpacked as part of this new era of Marvel, of like, we're going to do these things more authentically with authentic voices. So, I mean, while, those comic book origins are still there, this is going to hopefully create a better sort of picture of, the world that those from this culture want to bring about, in popular media, like really truly represent their love for their culture and mythology in ways that haven't been represented before. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see more. I know we like are jumping around and stuff and getting close to time here, but to jump back in, we kind of see that going back to the part of like acceptance, this episode really just ends with, Mark and Steven are agreeing to work together, like we get Steven gets his licks in his like soup, but like he also gets like the floor wiped with his three piece. So, like Mark jumps in and it's like a tag team brawl, and it gets very Assassin's Creed with parkour on the rooftop.
Parkour.
How did y'all feel about like the action in that sense in like the last like 5 minutes of the episode?
Whitney, I'll let you to go first.
Yeah. It was awesome. But yeah, it's pretty funny because it is very like club-esque, where he's just kind of fighting an invisible force. Like we get glimpses of what he's fighting, but as someone who's actually there, they're like, what is happening? Even the people on the bus and the pedestrians are like, what is going on? Just like a regular day in city life. But like, but I thought it was super cool seeing him, like just finally getting to see him in the suit and in action. And it was just really exciting to see him embrace that.
Mm-hmm. I love how each episode we're getting a little bit more and a little bit more of Moon Knight without having Moon Knight be the focus of the episode, and I love that. We certainly get a lot more of him here than we did in the first episode, but what we get of him here, oh, so good, so freaking good. Like, just from the moment he's like taking out the crescents and he's just like
no more blackouts.
Yeah, no more blackouts. And fighting the jackal with that. It's so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. Brilliant action and brilliant cinematography. I have to go back again to that cinematography because some of these iconic like screensaver shots, are in this entire moment where whether he's leaping across the building again as a silhouette against the moon, the crescent moon, or he's running and there's like a little bit of a reflection pool of like a lake with the moon in the background. You see a silhouette running against that. Only for him to jump off a roof, twist and slice dig the crescent into the jackal, grab the jackal, and then impale him against the light of the moon. I was just like, oh, this is so damn good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then to just end with the thing disintegrating and then him just catching the crescent right there. So many good things. Yeah, so good. Loved it every moment of it. And just whenever you see him put on the armor of Khonshu, you can expect a lot of fun. So loving it.
And this episode ends with like two really big sort of plot twists, and one kind of ties into our conversation about Arthur maybe being not to be trusted because Layla sees him approach, an unhoused person who finds the scarab and is like, does a good deed and returns it to Arthur, who's like, that's mine. And Arthur just kills him, like sucks his soul and is like, bye. And Layla's like, what the F is
that's shady.
That's shady. And then we also find out that maybe Khonshu is still shady because he's basically like, telling Mark, we're not through, like we have things we have to do. And if this ends between me and you, I'm gonna go after Layla because I want her to be my avatar. Like,
damn, these gods be tripping, they like
they're jerks. Gods are jerks, guys. Egyptian gods are jerks. One of the things that I loved about those couple of scenes, and really just the moment that I thought this is the show right here, is that argument between Mark and Steven. Where Mark just kind of has it with Steven. He locks Steven up and he boots him up, and then he starts like arguing with him to the point where he gets so frustrated he starts kicking in that mirror. Oscar Isaac again, just killing it with his acting. He's so brilliant. These interactions with Steven and Mark, you really do feel like they're two different characters, especially with the voice, that he's doing for Steven. But that whole scene where they're just arguing, that's what makes this show so compelling. That is the meat and the heart of this show. We can have all the amazing superheroics that we can have, what I was just gushing about. But at the end of it, the main attraction to me is that scene where he's kicking the mirror, because that's what all of this is for. And I loved it. Plus, again, to your point, Sabina, the shadiness of Khonshu, that conflict in and of itself, adding to that dynamic conflict between Mark and Steven, it complicates things and it makes them fascinating and makes them compelling, and it's just brilliantly executed, brilliantly done. I'm just in love with this show, guys.
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
Yeah, Whitney, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like I've always been obsessed with Egyptology. I visited Egypt back in 2005, and I've always been obsessed with the culture, and then obsessed with Marvel, and, and obsessed with Marvel. So these two things are just my absolute everything. So this show is just very special, and just everything about it, and the acting, the cinematography, the themes. I just chef's kiss, honestly.
Amazing. Yeah, no, this the whole last 5 minutes of this episode, you're really just like, I was beginning to like you, Khonshu, but oh my gosh, you want to take like his wife. And then Mark's all like, I will leave you alone, Steven. And it's like, wait, but like we kind of now think, Mark, aren't you the person whose this body belongs to? There are so many questions that are being raised. And who do we trust? I don't know, but I know I can trust Layla, like anything for Layla.
Yeah.
And hopefully she's protected at all costs. But there's probably something crazy that'll happen. And, you know, like she stole our hearts in this episode. We want to make sure she's okay, and we trust her because we don't know who to trust outside of her. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah.
Sabina, what did you think of the last shot of this episode?
Oh. Blush.
Yeah.
Yes.
Come on.
I mean, like the cerebral part of me is like, oh, Conchu can just like, you know, do lights out on Mark too. Like he just wakes up and is also, you know, obviously in Egypt. And I'm like, who was driving the body while he was blacked out? Because it wasn't Steven and it wasn't Mark. So
was it Jack? Will we be introduced to Jack?
Who we think?
Jake? You mean
Jake? Jake, my bad. Yeah, Jake.
All good. All
Jack
good.
is Fight Club.
Yeah.
They might change it to Jack. Who knows? That'd be interesting. I mean, they changed Marlene to Layla, so you know. It's possible. Yeah. But
I think
yeah,
y'all might be onto something with that for sure. And obviously, he's like shirtless and like just.
There it is.
I will be happy in Egypt with him. I'd be like, vacay, we're happy here. Let's just stay here.
And he has like a bottle in hand, and I'm like, what did you do last night?
Right, yeah.
And to finally have Mark kind of in control, we haven't seen this side of the character just yet, you know. So I'm very interested to see what Mark in control looks like for this next episode. You know, that's a really good place for them to leave this episode, because, you know, it's Mark is a completely different entity than Steven, and we've only ever seen really things through Steven's eyes. So this is gonna get crazy, you know.
Yes, I'm ready. This is gonna be great. We'll go around, and I wish I had a little like the moon to throw around, so we can just like throw the moon to tell people what you
just have to get one.
I could throw this.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
It's not a real crescent because it's white instead of gold. But okay, I'll throw it.
All right. Oh, it flew back there. But
sorry.
Yeah, basically, to wrap this up, yeah, I'm 100% on board. Can't wait to see where this takes us. Oscar Isaac is amazing, and boo. And you can find me under Whimsical Whitney on Instagram and see all of my themed goods that are Marvel, Star Wars, and all fandom related.
Me?
Yeah. We'll throw the crescent back.
Oh, my bad. Here.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay, cool. So I'm Mike Manalo. You can find me at TidyBullBoy182 on Instagram and Twitter. Final thoughts on this episode. I loved it. I think that they're just keeping the train going. And, you know, I mean, it's no secret that maybe Sabina, you and I might have seen a couple more after this one. We'll discuss them eventually, but I'm just going to put it out there that I think you guys are in for a treat. I think that this is just only going to get better and better and better as things continue. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But I loved it. And don't forget to check me out on Nerds of Color and What to Watch. And that's at LA. Back to you, Sabina.
I will take this crescent moon. So obviously we are Basic Binges here on Nom Talk. I'm Sabina. You can find me on Twitter at Sabina has no R, and you can find me writing the news and covering awesome genre stuff over at io9.com. as well as, you know, jumping around different programming here on Nom Talk. I'm also on a lot of the same sites Mike's on, you know, like happy to be a part of awesome teams with my friends and have this space for us to nerd out about this show every week, highlight of my week. And I'm looking forward to next week's episode. Same time, same channel. And we'll see you then. Bye.